Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Scott Verhoeve, and I work as the Executive Director of the Business and Education Partnership of Waterloo Region. We are a charity that helps young people in Waterloo Region explore careers and make informed decisions so that they can find their path to a fulfilling career in the future. We want to begin tonight by acknowledging that we are broadcasting from the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and neutral peoples. We honor and respect the First Peoples of Canada, and we strive to learn from their example. We also want to thank the sponsors of our Explore Your Future program, including Toyota Motor Manufacturing Canada, the Region of Waterloo, the Workforce Planning Board of Waterloo, Wellington, Dufferin, CLAC, the Specialist High Skills Major of the Waterloo Catholic District School Board, and the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Programs of the Waterloo Region and Waterloo Catholic District School Boards. Bit of a mouthful. Lots of folks are behind helping make tonight possible. The goal of our Explore Your Future series is to help young people in Waterloo Region and their families better understand their career opportunities and ways that they can continue exploring and preparing. So tonight we have with us 4 people whose careers involve working with food and in the hospitality sector. So they're going to be sharing what they do and how they got into this kind of work. They'll be also answering your questions. So for privacy, this is a webinar format, so your video and audio will remain off, but you can type your questions that you have at any time in the Q&A feature of Zoom. And we'd encourage you to do that with any questions that come to mind at any point. So with that in mind, I'm pleased to welcome to the camera our panelists for tonight. We have with us Darryl Fletcher, aka Chef D, so local chef at Chef D TV. Fatima Finnegan, who's a vice president with the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association. We have David Marskell, the CEO of the museum, and Megan Stover, who's a director of culture and development at the Charcoal Group of Restaurants. Thank you so much to each of you for sharing your time with us tonight. We are going to ask each of the panelists to start by introducing themselves, telling us a little bit about what they do and how they got into the work that they're doing. And we're going to start with Chef D, who graciously agreed to go first. So Chef D, could you again tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how did you get to what you're doing now from the days when you were back in high school? Take it away.
So I've been a chef now for over 35 years. A passion of mine that's always been in the forefront. I made my first loaf of bread when I was 10 years old. I had a really great high school. I went to Grand River here in Kitchener-Waterloo. And I was just talking to an old guidance counselor last night, Tom Conley, and just talking about how we had some amazing teachers that kind of helped us push us towards the dreams. Back in my day, we didn't have the chance to go in and be taught by a chef like you do in some of the high schools now. We had to take home ec and that, and I really didn't want to do that. So my passion, I went outside of the school, as it were, but the school supported me. I remember creating my own first catering company called A Touch of Class Catering when I was in grade 12. I would go into people's homes and cook dinner. And we did about 20 of them back in there, in between myself going to college and that. And fast forward to like 25 years ago, we redid that. We started that all over again and have been doing a whole bunch of chef dinners and that, which led us to form Chef D, which is my alter ego. We do TV. We've done 9 seasons of At Home with Chef D, 4 seasons of At the Cottage with Chef D, 1 season on Bell with it called Hammertown Grill. And then also we started a catering company. So we've done catering for anywhere from 200 to 900 people at the museum, which David will talk about in a couple minutes, and all over the region, all over Ontario. And then we got a fateful phone call about 10 years ago and going, hey, do you want to cater for B.B. King, a really great bluesman? Check him out, Google him. And it was just the start of our career on feeding bands, and we've had so many. I've dropped so many names, but that's kind of who we are. Like I said, I've been a chef for about 35 years now. My passion has always been food. My passion is seeing people smile and seeing what we can do around the table with food. And I am a people pleaser. I admit it 150%. And I love the instant gratification of seeing when great things happen and even when bad things happen. So that's kind of it for Chef D.
Thanks, Chef. Yeah, your passion makes me smile. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna pass the camera next over to Fatima for introduction. Fatima, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do and how you got into the work that you're doing now?
Thank you, Scott. And hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. I'm Fatima Finnegan, and I work for a company called Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association. And we're like a club, a hotel and restaurant club that hotels and restaurants can join, where they can have someone to ask questions. And when they have a question about how to run the business or they're not sure about something, we're the people that they can call. And I, like Chef D, have been in the business a little less than 35 years, but very close. And I started in the laundry room of a hotel, and I had so much fun working in the laundry room, where we got to wash all the dirty linen and the towels, and I got to learn about chemicals and how to wash and how to clean and how to fold, but mostly how to socialize and how to have fun with the people that I worked with. And from the laundry room, I worked my way through different departments in a hotel, and the fun didn't stop. So I went from working in the laundry room to cleaning rooms. Then I worked in personnel, which was human resources, for a little while, and then in catering, and then I worked at the front desk, and then I was old enough to serve alcohol, so I became a bartender. And then my goal was to be a general manager by the age of 30, which I did. And now I'm so happy to be working and representing restaurants and hotels across Ontario. So thank you for joining us today and for having me with you.
Yeah, thanks, Fatima. Yeah, I'm getting a sense that there's lots of different things that you can do in this industry. And we'll probably hear that from the others too. So David, you're next on my list. Tell us about what you do and how you got into the work that you're doing.
Great. Thank you for having me. Nice to see everybody. I'm just pleased to be part of such an amazing panel, and a big thank you to BEP for the important work that you do, and hello to all the students participating. Thank you for joining us tonight, and enjoy where you are right now in high school. It's the best. Enjoy it. Enjoy every minute and every day. And I met my wife at high school in grade 10. That was when we had blackboards and stuff. Anyway, unlike Darryl and Fatima, my career path was definitely not a straight line. In terms of my planning, I had a blast at university, for sure. Had no real idea what I wanted to do in life or where I wanted to be in 3 years or 10 years. I took a general a BA at the University of Guelph. And while I was there, towards the end of my time there was an oil embargo, and gas stations used to give away free road maps. And at that time they stopped. And I realized that if I bought road maps for 33 cents, I could sell them to gas stations for 66 cents, and they could sell them for $1. And I became very quickly one of the largest map distributors. Not that I made a lot of money, but I was one of the first to do that. And I ended up selling that company to the map company, Rand McNally in Chicago. So I guess at that point I was an entrepreneur. And then I put on a tie one day and I went to the C&E in Toronto and suggested I could make a fun map, create a map for where the food building was and the rides. And I did all of that. And a year later, I was the youngest director of marketing for Exhibition Place in the C&E. So I guess I was a marketer. And after 12 years there, I ended up working for the Walt Disney Company for a year on contract. And so I thought I was probably the biggest shot in the history of everything, but that was just a contract for a year. And then a friend who was in politics invited me to become chief of staff, as he was in government as a minister in provincial government in Toronto at Queen's Park. And so that was odd in my very not straight career path to become a chief of staff, but I really honed my people skills there. My innate sort of marketing and entrepreneurial sense took a back seat, and I had to listen and learn. And I hated every moment of it, but it was so great looking back. And I shepherded 3 bills that became law, which was kind of cool. So I guess I was a political strategist and all along. But then I got out of there and I created something called Careers in Education, which helped bring teachers and schools together, which ended up not just being locally, but around the world. And it was really exciting. So I was back to being an entrepreneur, but I wanted to get back to that attraction marketing activity that I love so much. So I took a step backwards in my career, and I became, I reported to somebody that I had that role at at the CNE at Ontario Place. And I did some great things there, in my opinion, that helped Ontario Place at the time take a next step to success. So I guess I was a business person. But then a search firm called me and said, you know, we have this thing called the Children's Museum in downtown Kitchener, and we need somebody just like you who is a marketer and a business person and an entrepreneur and all of the things. Would you like to have an interview? And I became the CEO of the Children's Museum 16 years ago, which has since rebranded, and I hope all of you have been there. And it's now called The Museum, and we have many awesome events and experiences there, and we have host 100,000 people. And so I guess I'm a museums guy. And yeah, that was my career path. No straight lines.
Yeah, love it. And maybe you're a storyteller too, I think. I think there's lots to glean from what you shared there, that yeah, a lot of times careers are, you kind of make it up as you go. You have another experience, you learn something from that, and then you go to the next thing. So let's hear the next from Megan, and then we'll move into hearing folks' questions. Megan, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here today. My name is Megan Stover. I'm the Director of Culture and Development with the Charcoal Group of Restaurants based out of Kitchener-Waterloo here. I actually began in very humble beginnings back when, you know, there was only a couple of restaurants in our group. In the early 2000s, I started as a host when I was in high school, simply because I had a family friend that worked at the charcoal, and she suggested that I might really like that environment. I was quite social and, you know, liked engaging with people, and thought that it could be a really, you know, great part-time job for me. And, you know, I took her up on the idea and became a host, and did that for a year. And, you know, getting a start in a, you know, a really dynamic business that is the Charcoal Steakhouse, you know, 700-seat restaurant, never worked in a restaurant before. You know, very, very busy place. It definitely proved itself to be exactly what I, you know, needed at that time, in terms of just a really dynamic, fun, engaging work environment. So kind of fell in love with the industry right away. I wasn't expecting that at all. And I hosted for a year, and then had the opportunity to become a server. I served and bartended, as well as became a supervisor while I was in university, thinking that I was going to follow a completely different career path. And, you know, university started to wrap up, and had to think real hard about what I thought I was going to do, which didn't seem to be what I was super interested in doing anymore. And, you know, had chatted with some of my colleagues, and learned that there was an opportunity to, you know, pursue management in this industry, and became a full-time manager at the young age of 22, with the opening of our Wildcraft restaurant in Waterloo. So I, you know, worked there over the next 5 years, the first 5 years of operations there, through various management positions and through the ranks. And I became lucky enough to have the opportunity to move into an operations position. Now that we had multiple restaurants, we had since opened up the Bar Kitchen in Waterloo, and our CEO was working on another concept that we now know today as Beer Town. So I was able to have the opportunity to work on the conceptual development of that brand, and knew that we were going to be opening up a number of locations in the next 2 years. And so got the opportunity to help develop systems and standards and pick uniforms and small wares and help get all of the things set up that need to be set up for a brand new restaurant open, go help facilitate the open, hire all the staff, train everyone, and then move on to the next one. And we opened our first 3 beer towns in a year and a half. So it was a busy time. And then slowly over time, we have, continued to grow. And I'm proud to say we opened beer town number 9 in November, and number 10 is coming at the beginning of April. And today we are 15 restaurants strong across Southwestern Ontario. And my career has continued to grow and blossom and change over the years as new opportunities have come along with the growth and change in our organization. And I focus now on kind of our people, culture, internally for our team. And so I know some of my fellow panelists had mentioned things about that they're passionate about. I think everyone here could share a passion in their career. I think that's a really important aspect of choosing what you do. Find something that you truly are passionate about and it won't feel like work. But I think for me, my own passion is definitely making an impact, whether that's with a guest in an interaction in a restaurant or with one of my colleagues or one of our team members. I think that's a really important part of what fulfills myself personally and in my career journey. But I'm excited for the future and the opportunity that there is to grow both for myself and for our entire team.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. That's great. Yeah, it's excellent to hear. I was getting a bit hungry there, thinking about some of the meals I've had at some of those restaurants. So yeah, I'm glad I ate a bit of dinner before we hopped on here, or else I wouldn't be able to make it. But yeah, so we're going to move next. Now we've got a chance to get to know everybody a little bit. We're going to move next into some Q&A here. So again, for folks who are listening, this is your opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. If you want to know a little bit about more about anything, I guess you can ask it, and we'll be bringing your questions forward to the panelists. So I'm going to start with one here now. As I find sometimes it is hard to understand this. Could you give us a sense of, what would a typical day look like for you? And the most common answer I get is, well, there's no typical day, and that's fine. But give a sense to folks listening, what are some of the things that you do on a regular basis and kind of what your job looks like day to day, perhaps just elaborating slightly on what you already shared. And anybody can get us started on that. You'll just have to unmute yourself first. Hey, Darryl, if you're talking, we can't hear you. You're muted. That might have been my fault.
There we go.
Right.
My day today started at 3:30. We had a brand new customer and wanted to see them and see the whole process of us doing our first catering with them. And so I was baking croissants and muffins at 4 o'clock this morning to get the breakfast and then get going for lunch. That's what's so cool. Like you mentioned earlier, yes, my job does change day to day, but I still love just getting back in the kitchen and just cooking,
I'll just add a bit to that, is that even though every day is a little different, I think the same common thread in all of our days is that we have people coming and going through our journey of our days of servicing people. And sometimes we have really happy people. Sometimes we have really sad and angry people. And I think the greatest gift of all is when we can turn someone's experience around from a bad one into a good one. So the people piece for me is certainly the common thread in all of my days, even though the questions may be different or the asks are different day in and day out. Each individual person is different. So the service that I give to them is also different, even though there's a common ground to that.
David, Megan, would either of you like to comment on a typical day?
As you said, there's no typical day. I mean, today I began my day with an urgent call from Mike Farwell, who somebody bailed on him overnight, and he needed somebody to talk with the mayor about the future of downtown Kitchener. And so there we were. But I mean, I think as people get into this industry, there's some paperwork, and you deal with your emails early in the day, or I do. I try to get those behind me, and and you've got to have that work-life balance as well. But I deal with my emails and then take what's coming at me. And there's HR activities and there's creativity of what's our next exhibition. And there's that business negotiation. Can we afford that? Is it relevant? Will it work here? And those types of things. So there is not a typical day. I think most of us would agree, but it's never dull. It's never dull, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's definitely never a dull moment. And I think that's one of the greatest things about this industry actually, is that if you like to be constantly challenged and be, a little bit on your toes and ready for the unexpected, then this is a great industry to be in. On that note, procrastinating on doing things is never going to be your friend, because something's always going to come up, and that thing that you keep meaning to get to is just going to stay in some sort of project parking lot and never be, attended to. So staying organized and on top of tasks is an important thing, but also keeping in mind this idea of, we talk about it a lot, ruthless prioritization. That your to-do list that you thought was important last week needs to be reevaluated constantly, because you may very quickly realize that something you thought was important last week really isn't as important as something else that has surfaced or pushed itself to the top. So making sure that you're always attacking the most important thing. But I'd like to even just mention too, something Fatima had said there a minute ago, is that, you can kind of never forget, as your career progresses, what it is that the core value and core importance of your business is. So I'm not in the restaurant our restaurants every single day, but that is the bread and butter of what it is that we do. We can never lose sight of that. And I think in our organization, one of the greatest things about our team at our level is that we all have come from the restaurants, and we try to spend as much time in the restaurants as humanly possible. And if we are there and notice that the phone's ringing, and the team needs hands to help seat guests at the front door, or needs hands in expo or behind the bar, like, we stop everything and we help out. And that is we are only as successful as our weakest restaurant, and we need to jump in and help out wherever possible when we can. So not to lose sight of that.
All right, so we've got 4 people here who wear a lot of hats, dozens and dozens of hats here. I wonder if we could segue from something that you talked about there, Megan. You talked about the importance of organizational skills and that ruthless prioritization. Folks want to share perhaps a little bit more on that front. Maybe, what would you say would be one of the key skills that you use in your job that you think maybe young people would want to be thinking about? So we've heard organization and ruthless prioritization. Are there any others?
I really think empowering your team, making them feel important, hearing them, like truly listening to them. Sometimes you get 2 votes, but listening to them, they might see something that you hadn't thought of, and empowering young people, I think, is very important.
It definitely is a team environment. This is not a me industry at all. This is absolutely, you can't do it without each individual that is scheduled to be in their role on a given day. And so, team skills, relying on each other, communication is really, really important. Understanding that you also want to give kudos and feedback to the peers that you're working with. And making sure that you're trying to foster that team environment as much as possible is a really big thing too. No matter what position you're in, no matter what level you're at, it's absolutely imperative.
I'm seeing other people nodding heads there. So yeah, I think we're hearing organization, communication, and all those skills that go into that big bucket of communication, listening to people, showing appreciation, collaborating. I
think leading by example also is a really key thing. Like, in my role, not only, people see me on TV, but they see me in other places, but my staff see me, that way too. But they also, you have to show them, like, I'm the first one in the dish pit, we're also like I said earlier, you get in early, you get things going so that you can work right alongside of them, that again, they can see that it's, you know, you're just as human and just as important. They're just as human and just as important as I am to make this all work.
Right on. Yeah, and I see more nodding there. So I'm wondering here, there's a question from the audience. Question is, which schools or courses would allow a student to be able to pursue a culinary career? So not all of you have trained as chefs per se, but probably various folks will have some insight on this. So again, now we're thinking about skills and what skills we can learn. So this question is, you know, how and where could I learn some of these kinds of skills? Which schools or courses would allow a student to be able to pursue a culinary career? What would you recommend?
If you're really passionate about becoming a chef, I really think the Stratford School of Chefs is a great opportunity for you to explore. It's a smaller of all the schools, and you work within the restaurant community in Stratford, which is a really cool food community to begin with. I love that school. I think they do some great things. And then of course, in our own backyard, we have Conestoga College. And they're doing some amazing things, like they have the new cheese course and that. So I think there's, you know, look and see what your passions are. If you like this, maybe the smaller setting and going into that, I would look at Stratford. If you like being part of the bigger experience, which would be Conestoga, and there's so many different options, and it could be Humber, it could be George Brown, or Niagara College for that matter, and check it out, because Niagara College has a really great wine program too that maybe you could kind of morph into with some of the culinary. So
anyone want to add anything?
I'll just add that there's a number of Ontario schools that offer the specialist high schools majors program. And I think that's where a lot of high school students get a taste, get it? A taste for hospitality. And so if you have a taste for hospitality at the high school level, then to Darryl's point, I think it's important to find out next steps of what specifically is it? Is it culinary? Is it something around food? Is it something around service, operations? Is it around sales and marketing? There's so many divisions or buckets that you can look at. And then entities like ours, we can match you up with a mentor in the industry, but also tie into a local college across Ontario and beyond.
Yeah, we don't know what age the person is who asked the question, but certainly, yeah, if you're not in high school yet and taking a culinary class at your high school, then many of them have that. So by all means, take advantage, and things like co-op, where you could actually go work in a restaurant and have that experience is excellent. And you make connection, obviously, with people too, that could, as we've heard from a few folks who started when they were young, that could lead to a long career just there. So the other thing I'd recommend for finding programs at the post-secondary level would be OCAS, the Ontario College Application Service. You can find all those kinds of programs that were mentioned there, where you can basically search which colleges offer, at least public colleges, and then there's other ones that are private, like the Stratford School as well. So that can help you, but you've heard about a lot of the good ones here already. So, all right. So let's ask some other questions here. Okay, so this question is a bit more specific, but let's ask it, because maybe that folks have come across this kind of thing in their work and they might have some insights here. So this person's asking, are there any courses that people with a physical limitation, such as chronic pain, could study to pursue something in the food industry, ideally baking? So they're saying, ideally they'd be looking for training that'd be flexible, maybe limited hours, correspondence based. What could you, if you could, what insight would you offer to this person?
I've worked actually recently with Conestoga College, actually as a professor, and I actually taught some baking and pastry students at Conestoga College last year in a hospitality leadership course. But I know that the way that program is developed at Conestoga is that There is some in-class learning. Obviously, it is a hands-on field that you actually do need to be in class working with the products and learning how to, use those skills. But there are also a number of courses that happen, in a classroom setting, that are seated and don't require a lot of moving around. And there were also some courses that were taken online at home, so you can dial into classes as well. So, there are definitely some options and opportunities out there. And I would recommend that when you are looking into some of those options, that you understand, what the requirements are in terms of how much would be in like an actual baking lab versus in a classroom setting versus online. It seems to be a bit of a hybrid learning model these days in post-secondary education. And so you could, work your semesters so that you have a mixture of the different types of learning that will best suit your needs. And I think being upfront about what your needs are is an important part of that as well. I know that the colleges and universities do have some very strong accommodations processes in place that they can help you structure your semester schedule or help guide you towards, classes that will best suit your needs. And they will also work with the teachers directly to make the accommodations that are needed to help you through the courses that do have a little bit more of a physical element to them. So basically, don't be afraid. Just do your research and ask lots of questions. And there's lots of people around that can help guide you.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Megan, I appreciate your comment on the accommodations. I mean, here we are, the hospitality industry, and who accommodates the best? People in the accommodation and hospitality industry. Our industry takes AODA very seriously, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So whether any employee or student intern or employer has an invisible or a visible disability, the employer will work with you, but you just need to be upfront with us to let us know what accommodations are needed. Sometimes the person with the disability knows best, and we as the employer don't. So if you share with us what the accommodation is that's needed, we accommodate. In our sector, we've hired many persons with disabilities, including, I can give you a raw example of a hotel in Kitchener that hired someone who was hard of hearing and had very severe hearing loss. And they hired this individual to work in housekeeping, and the only accommodation that was needed was the mobile phone. So we were able to accommodate that individual by using the mobile phone. So that's a great question. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that comes to mind for me, and I'm not an expert, so I defer to others in this regard, but there's lots of opportunity to learn on the job as well. If you find an employer who's looking for sort of who also wants that kind of arrangement, where someone is flexible and maybe they don't looking for 9 to 5 type of hours, then you can learn a lot just from doing, and the school options will always be there. I would never dissuade anybody from post-secondary education, of course, but there's we don't want to forget that you can learn a lot from experienced people and working under them and learning that way, and that offers all kinds of unlimited possible variations in terms of schedules and stuff like that, depending on what any given company might be looking for at any given time.
And if I can add to that, even if you are interested in pursuing your Red Seal certification, you do need to have a certain number of hours that work towards you achieving that anyway. So work and school aren't always mutually exclusive. They definitely go hand in hand, particularly if you are looking to achieve a Red Seal type of certification. So just make sure that if you do choose to go to the employment route, and that's something that you want to achieve at some point, to select an employer that has a Red Sealed chef on their team that can help sign off on your requirements for that designation.
I'm wondering if folks I know this won't apply to all of your careers per se, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit about the Red Seal designation and what that is and kind of how this intersects with the apprenticeship pathway, because I'm not sure everyone listening will necessarily know what that is and how it might apply to being a chef or a baker, for example. Is that your forte, Megan?
I think Chef D should start, and I can maybe add some things on at the end there.
The Red Seal program is in part with the apprentice program is to get, and I'm forgetting the hours right now, but between 4,500 and 5,000 hours within the industry, working with, as Megan mentioned, a Red Seal chef, so that, and there's a booklet, and there's an apprentice booklet, and it's a great question because I was just filming at the cottage up in Muskoka in Huntsville at Deerhurst, and Rory Golden, who's been a very key factor in the Muskoka Chefs Association, and also trying to get you young folks to come into our industry, wants us all to be part of the organization of training young people to be chefs and going back into the apprentice book and showing, you know, not that we will be doing everything, you know, like there's some phyllo glazing desserts that we don't do as much anymore as they would have in class in earlier times in hotels and that, but just learning the basics, learning how to make a great soup, you know, learning the 4 different sauces and how you can create and build on that. And also the butchery side of it, you know, that you know the different cuts, you know how to hold a knife, you know how to chop and that. So it's all those little basics that, you know, you see us doing, and it seems second nature because we've done it for so long. And this is and it goes really well hand in hand. And also it excites the students because they're actually going to learn something other than just being thrown onto the line or thrown into the prep area. And I don't mean thrown as literally, but just, you know, that you're in there and you're kind of stuck there and you're not learning anything. This, I think, gives us all an opportunity to help our industry get even better than it already is.
Yes, no one was thrown in the making of this episode of Chef D.
Sorry.
Good to be sure. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, right. It's so for folks who aren't aware, again, there's an apprenticeship model out there where certain occupations you can formally take an apprenticeship, which means you're training under an experienced person like a Chef D, for example, and you work under them for a certain number of hours and you basically complete certain competencies in that book that Chef D mentioned, and so you're learning on the job and you get paid while you're working, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's another way of going about you know, getting experience and ultimately getting a credential, and then the Red Seal certification, if I remember correctly, it's a Canada-wide standard that you're then trained to, so you can take that
Worldwide. It's worldwide.
Worldwide. Perfect. Even better. And I think they have these restaurants and things pretty much anywhere you go. So that's nice to have that mobility. No, I'm being sarcastic.
That just, if I can add to that, yeah, just for a second, you know, there's the Red Seal is not necessarily an absolute requirement of being a chef or being a cook or any type of culinary manager role in our industry. You know, some employers put it at a heightened, you know, credential for people that they're looking to hire, and that's up to them. And others look at it as, you know, a great thing to have. It shows that you have intention to build a career in a culinary field, which is really amazing to see on a resume. Obviously, it shows that there's a great level of skill and work that's gone into achieving that. But it's definitely not an absolute requirement to work in our industry.
Yeah, thanks for making that explicit. I think that applies to many things. There's probably not a requirement to have you know, a master's of business administration or a curator's program, if such a thing exists for museums either, David, right? It's sometimes it's just the experience that you bring to the table that attracts you to those kinds of things or makes you suitable. He's nodding. Excellent. Yep. So another question here is coming from the audience. Someone's asked, how about if you're an ESL student? So maybe I'll rephrase this to say, what advice might you give to a young person who is learning, still developing their English skills in terms of, you know, what opportunities they might be able to access or supports or things of that nature? Would anyone have anything to add on this regard? It may be that it's no different for a student who's learning English than advice you would give to other students.
I know at the museum, it's been wonderful that people coming through their career to also learn English as they're growing in their career. Just jump in. They've just got to jump in, and you start to learn the day-to-day activities and different phrases and so on and so forth. And we've had a lot of people come from the working center. That's the reason they came to the museum, was to help with their English. And we've hired many of them along the way. And it's just a matter of practicing and jumping in.
No substitute for just learning by doing, right? But there's opportunities here to be in those spaces and learn as you go. Perfect. All right, so I'll say to folks, anybody else listening who has questions, again, reminder here to keep adding those into the Q&A. We'd love to hear more of those from you folks. I'm going to throw one out to the panelists here now. You've probably touched on a few of these things in some of your introduction, but I'll mine for a few other ideas. What other kinds of experiences helped you figure out what you were good at and what you wanted to do? Like, Chef D was baking bread already at 10 years old. That obviously came pretty natural to them, to you, but for others, and maybe for Chef D too, was there anything specific experiences that helped you kind of pointed you in that right direction so that you kind of knew, yeah, that's the path that I want to follow? Because I think sometimes people they get stuck, right? It's like we can say, find your passion, but what sort of things helped you do that? How did you find that path that was right for you?
I think, if I may, I think don't be shy. Jump in, and maybe you'll find that you didn't really like that path, but you were reasonable at it, or you're really good at it. And that's where there's no straight line. All of a sudden you'll go, oh yeah, actually, I really like this trajectory of where I'm going now and the path that I'm on. So it is about experiencing things. And as a young person, just don't give up any opportunity at any level. Like I mentioned in my career, I took a step backwards to move forwards. And I think that's important. And people just need to, if there's an opportunity, take it. You may not like it in the end, but you will learn and grow from it. And I don't mean to sound corny, but I believe that's true.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you, Dave. And dream big. Like, if your dream doesn't scare you, it truly isn't big enough. And my wife can attest to that on many times through, this what we've done with Chef D and that. And again, don't be scared to make a mistake along the way, because that mistake I'm going to take it back to cooking. You might not see that a Dungeness crab and a radish does not go in a salad until you try it, and you don't see that kind of part of our part, because when we get to the plate, it's perfected by then. So again, make the mistakes. Brush yourself off, come back in, and away you go. And along with David said, is that sometimes it goes like this, and all of a sudden you're over on this side and you went, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to stay over here, and then you just go down there. So again, just don't be scared, and life's too short to live that way.
And if I can, at the risk of talking too much, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. Got to try things, and just do that your whole career. Even at my stage of my career, you got to try new things. You might not be successful many times, but there'll be times where you go, wow, I had no idea that could work.
I love the advice that the two Ds are giving here, because I think back to when I was in high school, and when you kind of have to think, what do you want to be when you grow up? You'd sit there and go, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. And so if you don't know what you want to do, and you're hearing the advice of take a chance, think about who you want to work for, and then take a chance with that employer. So if you don't know what you want to do, think about who you want to work for, and then that's your opportunity there. Sorry, Megan.
Oh, don't apologize. I think that was awesome advice. And, to kind of pick up on the theme, taking a step forward and taking a chance on something is taking an opportunity to learn. And even if the learning is, that wasn't for me, that's a huge step. You've moved forward in some way, and maybe along that path of trying, you realize, I did like this one small aspect. Maybe that'll take me in a direction over here, and I'll follow that. It's okay to not know what you want to do, as long as you think through. I'm going to give something a try, and I'm going to try to just move myself forward. I do think that it's important to think about, especially if you're not quite sure what to do, or you might want to explore something. What exactly is it that you want to learn for yourself, even if you're not exactly sure what avenue to go down? Like, is there a skill set that you need to build on for yourself? Do you need to work on your communication skills or your interpersonal skills? Do you want to, maybe you've never worked on a team before in a dynamic atmosphere, like in a restaurant. Maybe that's an opportunity for you, and you could work in a restaurant or another environment where you're working on a team to build those specific skills, even if you're not sure that that's what you want to do long term. Are you wanting to work on problem solving skills, or maybe you just want to work on your confidence, and getting out there and working with the public is a way to just get you out of your comfort zone and try to build some skills. So there really is no wrong answer other than not learning from your mistakes and just staying stagnant. I think just try to keep moving, because there's always learning in all of that.
That's really, really important. You might find yourself in a place that you don't want to be here. You didn't actually think this was where you were going, but how can you take advantage and grow from that? How can you learn? I mentioned that I was chief of staff for a cabinet minister. I was way over my head compared to other people, but I learned people skills, and I learned how to work with the deputy minister, and I learned how to work with friggin' politicians, and I worked, and when I came out of it, I had grown as an individual in terms of my career.
Yeah, you never know what given opportunity might send your way, but yeah, you can't learn it if you don't give that a try, right? So I think the point is there's lots of opportunities, but take those opportunities and see what comes of them. And I think sometimes that happens for folks when they're faced with what appears to be an overwhelming decision, like, what am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? It's easy to just procrastinate, right? Because that's a pretty overwhelming question. So if you can break that down and just kind of figure out what's the next step you're going to take, make a series of small decisions, it's much easier to kind of find your way to something that eventually you are liking and are quite happy with, and then you just keep going from there. One other thing that I'm wondering, I'm thinking back to my days in high school. I had a brief job as a dishwasher at a local restaurant incidentally in Stratford, which is where I grew up. And I didn't know anything about the restaurant industry much at all, but I'm guessing that some of the folks who are on the webinar here today have already felt like they're interested and probably know a little bit about the industry. But we've got quite a lot of experience here in hospitality. I'm wondering if folks could share a little bit of insight that they might have into what are some of the kind of the big changes that you see happening in your industry that maybe wouldn't be obvious to guests at your museum or restaurant, that might be good for young people to be aware of as they're making decisions about their future, and again, what sort of skills might be helpful and that kind of thing. So I guess the question here, to take a very long explanation and shorten it a little bit, would be, what would be sort of major changes or trends that you see happening in the food and hospitality sector? Give yourself a chance to think about that.
I can jump in clearly. We're seeing a lot of technology jump into our industry, and I'll give you two quick examples. Now, when you check into a hotel and you don't get a room key anymore, what you get is a code on your mobile phone that you scan to your door to open the door to your bedroom. So you don't actually have a key or a fob key to get into your hotel room. And in restaurants, and I know Megan can attest to this as well as the others, is we have robots. We have robots in hotels and we have robots in restaurants that will deliver food, beverages. I know in hotels that have robots, now they're saying, geez, everybody's phoning for towels now because everybody wants to see the robot. So technology is definitely up and coming in our industry and making change.
Everything with
Sorry, that made me laugh out loud.
moving forward has to have some- So
Anyone want to add to that?
needs to be on the PDF.
I agree. Technology is definitely a thing. Robots aside, I think our organization is very focused on people, person-to-person interaction. So I think I can safely say on behalf of us, we will never have a robot server in any of our restaurants. That said, technology is still a really important part of what we do. And you know, you've got point of sale systems that, you know, put orders to computer screens in the kitchen, and you've got wireless payment devices that can scan a QR code gift card. We've got online ordering portals. There's inventory systems, like scheduling programs. I can go on and on. There's a lot of technology. So definitely having an adeptness to tech, even if you don't necessarily know those systems inside and out, just having a comfortability with technology is definitely an important thing, and you can learn the skills that are needed for the particular program once you're on the job. But yeah, even though we're talking about, you know, very hands-on service and food that, you know, you wouldn't think are always tech related, there's definitely a technology element to the industry for sure.
Very, very specific to the museum and gallery world, if you will, art one. We younger audiences don't want to see, sorry, I don't mean to generalize too much, a collection of dusty old things. You know, that's been replaced by food, fashion, and film. And that's been replaced with experiential activity and immersive digital experiences that you can Instagram, which goes to the technology point. So the technology part, and I love the robots. And I did get served by one at a dim sum place in Toronto, which was, you know, the Instagram moment. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things changing in the hospitality industry for sure, some technology based and some driven by the customer. They want a different experience.
And then even being back in the kitchen, and now years ago, like you'd have a ripped up duotang of all different recipes, and that, you know, that you would kind of, you know, finger your way through it and hopefully find the right one to make it work for what you're looking for. Now you can go online to many different amazing websites that will have, you know, Cooks Illustrated, American Test Kitchen, and all that, that you can look up and actually see a video of how to make that, you know, product, whether it be baking or something like that. And we have a newer chef in our kitchen, and he's always, you know, on his phone looking up and how to do that, you know, and not only asking us, but also kind of going through it and then coming out and trying it. And I really think that's really key, is that you see it, because we're a visual, you know, audience, is that, you know, you see it, you do it, and you can make it happen.
Yeah, that makes me think too. There's another flexible learning opportunity, right? There's so much instructional material online to learn a lot of different kinds of skills. So for folks who are thinking about that and looking for accessible learning, that might be another option too. We got another question here from the audience, which will probably bring us towards the end, I'm thinking. We might have time for one more after, but we'll see. So the question is, we've touched on a bit of this, but you can elaborate if you wish. What is your favorite part or experience of your job? Let's leave it at that. What's your favorite part of an experience of your job in the work that you do? Easy question.
I love cooking. I love what part of our company is we do the in-home dining, and we do the whole cooking in front of the guests. And it's just great to, you know, hear the questions, see the reactions. And I think that's my favorite place to be, my happy place.
Others?
I think I kind of touched on it earlier, but I think the kind of the dynamicism of our industry. I feel very privileged to have had the very multifaceted career that I've had through my 20 years in hospitality. That I have a crazy amount of transferable skills. Not that I obviously have ever looked elsewhere. I've been with Charcoal Group for so long, but I do know that there's been other non-hospitality businesses in Waterloo Region who years ago, a specific story with Research in Motion, or RIM, the company that ran BlackBerry. They would hold career fairs annually, and there was a gentleman that came into one of our restaurants once to tell us a story that at their most recent career fair, they had a couple people that had Charcoal Group management experience on their resumes, but had since moved into, another field, and were applying it at Research in Motion. And they told the story of how they had this mentality that if somebody that applied from our organization to their company, that they always put us to the top of the pile in terms of the interview process. And because they had this great success rate with former Charcoal Group people, in that they knew how to manage people, they were very familiar with systems and standards, they had the customer service element down, and they knew how to manage a business, and just the many millions of details that come with running a busy business 7 days a week. And so that was obviously very flattering coming from a tech company totally unrelated to what we do. But there is that element of there's a million details to be managed in a day and in a week. And so, as we mentioned, there's never a dull moment. And those skills, even if that doesn't end up being your long-term career goal, are definitely very transferable into a multitude of other industries.
Yeah, I love that. Anyone want to add anything else?
I would just say I've learned something tonight, that you don't put radishes on a salad. Who knew that? So I've learned something tonight. So I'll put those on the side. But this may not be answering the question directly, but one of the best things, the most rewarding things for me, is to see a parent on one knee with their child, discussing something at the museum and King and Queen, and talking about it, and the kids asking a question, and the parents recalling how they saw Terry Fox run. It's just so fulfilling, so rewarding. And I'm sure I believe the others, as they see people enjoy their culinary skills or their hotel, it's very rewarding, this industry, the hospitality industry, for sure.
I'll just add to that, David, that I'm never bored. I am never, ever, ever bored, but I always feel that I'm learning as well. To your point, David, now I'll never put a radish on my salad ever again, but I'm always learning.
Chef D's thinking, I think I've been misquoted there. I didn't tell people to not put a radish.
Just on Dungeness crab. It doesn't work with Dungeness crab, just so you know.
Yeah, crab doesn't feature too heavy in my kitchen. I wouldn't even know what it looks like. I won't have that problem. That's lovely. Yeah, no, thank you everybody for sharing those insights. Lots of excellent advice there given, and I think big messages. Your career stories all show this, right? There's a lot of room to grow in this industry, so get your feet in there. There's opportunities to get started and see where it could take you, and whether that's in hospitality or moving to other industries beyond there. So yeah, pretty neat to hear those stories, and to have each of you volunteering your time to share them with us here. So there's just one question's here coming under the wire. I'm just going to say to that student here who's asking about a small baking business, check out your Waterloo Region Small Business Center. They're a great resource to talk all things small business, and they can probably help you get started. And they have great programs too for young people who want to start a business as well. So I only had the panelists say they'd stay till 7:30, so I don't want to keep them much longer, although I'm sure they'd be willing. But we'll let them get on their way. So with that in mind, a couple things to wrap up here. I have some notes that I want to share and make sure I don't forget to say. Well, one thing that we've heard tonight was that you want to have experiences and then learn from them. So to that end, we provide a reflection form that we encourage folks who are listening to fill out, just as again a way to process, reflect on what you heard tonight and what you might do with that information as a next step for yourself. So you'll see that when the Zoom window closes, link to that Google form, or it'll come into your email tomorrow. Give you the rest of the night off. You could fill it out tomorrow if you like. It also sends information to us about what you learned, so it helps us understand, what was useful, what we might do differently next time, those sorts of things. So we appreciate it on that end. We have some other events and programs coming up in the near future that you might want to know about. We have a few career fairs, in-person career fairs, coming to Kitchener and Cambridge this spring. And April 13th, there'll be a career fair at Tapestry Hall in Cambridge, and May 17th at the Odd in Kitchener. So for folks, and some of these folks who are on the call here, their organizations may be there. So again, and many others. So again, an opportunity to come out and meet with people and talk about opportunities for work and learning here in this community. So encourage folks to go on our website and check those out and sign up to attend if you'd like. We also have a really neat program called the Youth Creativity Fund that we've just started up recently, which is an opportunity for young people in our community to receive a microgrant for up to $1,000 to experiment with a creative solution to a problem that you see in the world around you. So you've heard tonight, like over and over again, right? Like one of the best ways to figure out what you want to do for your career is to try something, have an experience, learn from that, and figure out what you're into and what you like. So we basically give you money to do that. If you see some challenge or problem in the world around you, in your life at home or at school or what have you, you think you could do something to make it better, then you can apply to this fund to actually try to put your idea in motion and see what you learn from that. So you can check that out, youthcreativity.fund.ca. and find more information about that there and apply if you think you have an idea. Then the neat thing about it is our goal is to say yes to any ideas that fit our criteria. So it's very much open-ended. It's not a competition. So we just are trying to encourage people to get out there and try their ideas. So something to think about. With that in mind, I want to end by saying thank you so much to our panelists again, and for everyone joining us tonight. We look forward to learning with you again soon. Take care. Have a great evening.